The Nintendo Switch is going out with one of the biggest bangs that you can ever see when it comes to Nintendo overall. This is kind of uncharted territory for them, and we've got some massive news to go over because closer and closer, that legendary goal of 160 million is within somewhat reach for the Nintendo Switch. And it's big news that they could potentially have the best selling system of all time with the latest update of numbers for the Nintendo Switch 1. But there's still some hurdles to go over, and we're going to get into that in addition to a number of massive updates with Nintendo Switch games and what you can see in the future from the Nintendo Switch 1 and heading into the Nintendo Switch 2. So you're going to want to stick around for that. Now let's go ahead and jump right into it here. We're starting off with the Nintendo Switch sales numbers. We have the official count, and it's confirmed 100% from Nintendo. Over 150 million systems sold. This is only the third time ever in the history of video games when it comes to dedicated systems that any console, any device has ever sold at least 150 million units. The Nintendo Switch is up in rare territory with the PlayStation 2 at 160 million units and the Nintendo DS at 153 million units. Now, Nintendo is probably going to pass the Nintendo DS this year at some point. It's going to get that extra 3 million or so that it needs right around there to pass that up. And then once again, it's already somewhat in striking distance at about 9 million or so away when it comes to the PlayStation 2. And of course, we're going to talk about how Nintendo, if they even want to get to that, how they can actually get through and top the PlayStation 2. Now, with those sales, 150.86 million right now at this point. Nintendo had a total of 4.82 million Nintendo Switch hardware sold and 53.7 million software were sold during the 3 months ended December 31st, 2024. So keep that in mind, guys. This does not tally up the sales for January and kind of what's going on. Obviously, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is not on there. Apparently, that's actually doing pretty well overall, despite some of the controversies and stuff with that game. Very similar to other ports that Nintendo's done that people kind of get upset with. And I understand completely in terms of the complaints overall, but it definitely seems like that game is actually selling pretty well and will be a million-plus seller when we get the next financial report in a number of months. But I do think that the Nintendo Switch, when it comes down to it, probably sold okay in January. So that number is probably more closer to 151 million units plus at this point, but the sales go through to December 31st in the 3-month period. Now, let's break down some of the other stuff when it comes down to it. I'm pretty sure that with these numbers here, when it comes to versus the PlayStation 2, Sony is going to somehow find another 3 million PS2s to be at 163 million at some point this year. No, I'm joking. I mean, kinda. But I mean, like, it's one of those things to where you never know, right? No, I'm joking, guys. I mean, the PS2 legendary system at 160 million, but once again, it is in striking distance. There has been no other system outside of the Nintendo DS, but when it comes to home consoles, I mean, it's not even close. Like the Wii, the PlayStation 4, some of the other best-selling home consoles of all time have all kind of flamed out a bit when it somewhat thinks like, hey, we could maybe get there. It's like, nah, you're not getting there. You can't sell at the same rate. So the Nintendo Switch is the first system in a very long time, probably the first system at all when it comes to it that really has a legitimate shot outside of the DS. But anything that's been considered a home console, there hasn't been anything even close except for the Nintendo Switch here. But you know what else is not close? Sometimes when I look at my numbers and I see that a lot of you guys actually aren't subscribed to the channel, but you're enjoying the content that I'm doing. So if you enjoy these breakdowns, the big Nintendo news, updates, and all that, we cover stuff all the time on the channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and of course, click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. And drop a comment below if you think the Nintendo Switch could catch the PlayStation 2 or not. I do think that it's possible, but obviously there's a number of things that Nintendo has to do, which we will get into in a little bit. Now let's talk about the status quo when it comes to Nintendo Switch 1 software sales, because this is pretty interesting. The top 10 is pretty much what you'd expect with the updates. We're going to go from the bottom to the top. In at number 10, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, 18.06 million. Super Mario Party at 21.10 million. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in at number 8 at 21.55 million. Number 7, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at 26.38 million. Number 6, Pokemon Sword and Shield at 26.60 million. Number 5, Super Mario Odyssey at 29.04 million. Number 4, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at 32.62 million. Number 3, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 35.88 million, which is awesome to see. I love me some Smash Brothers. Number 2, New Horizons at 47.44 million. And then at number 1, the true eternal, the 10-year plus beast, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 67.35 million. So there's a couple of things in here that I think are pretty crazy overall with the Nintendo Switch 1 software sales. I want to start off with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That's probably going to outsell Pokemon Sword and Shield by the time that we get the next sales numbers. It's been catching on it and catching on it and gaining on it and gaining on it for a while now at this point, and it looks like it's going to catch up. But it's been making huge strides in the millions to catch Pokemon Sword and Shield. So I do think that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet will move in to that 2nd/3rd place in terms of the hierarchy of Pokemon games overall. And really, number 1 when it comes to on the Nintendo Switch, it will be the best-selling Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch. So we're definitely going to see that. Next up, Super Mario Odyssey will probably hit 30 million before it's all said and done. There's been no other 3D Mario game that's even touched these numbers. Odyssey has been at the top of the totem pole for 3D Mario games for pretty much almost the whole generation of the Nintendo Switch. It's just sold way better than what we saw with Mario Galaxy 1 and definitely Mario Galaxy 2 and pretty much all of the other 3D Mario games out there. It's insane to see how well this game is done. Nintendo just decided to say, hey, we're just going to make one big 3D Mario game and let it sell for the generation, and that's exactly what they did. And obviously it's paying off here with going on 30 million sales here with over 29 million. So very good there. Next up, I do want to talk about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. There was a sale that Nintendo put on in addition to other places like Walmart and all of that having sales, and it gave it a nice bump up. Now, obviously still not going to catch The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, probably, but at the same time, over 21.55 million, so over 21 million. Once again, had a pretty good quarter overall, well over 500,000 plus, 500,000 in sales. So that's definitely good, what you want to see. So we could see 22 million, 23 million or so, depending on what sales and what Nintendo does with that. And if there is some type of update when it comes to playing at 4K 60 or playing at 1080p 60 DLSS on the Nintendo Switch 2, expect that to actually bump up the sales, because I do feel that some people were maybe waiting to get it at a cheaper price, but in addition to being able to play it on the Nintendo Switch 2 with a bit better frame rate and resolution overall. So look out for that in 2025, Nintendo putting out some type of update and Tears of the Kingdom getting a huge boost in sales overall, especially digitally. I do think that it could with some sales discounts and deals. Now, next up that I want to talk about is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This will probably sell 70 million units plus before it's all said and done, which would be a first that I've ever seen in the modern era for Nintendo for a game that wasn't a standard pack-in. Now, there are some bundles with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that Nintendo does every now and then, usually like the holiday period. They'll do that for like a limited time, and that is a source of sales. There has been millions of units sold in bundles, but I think even if you take that away, this game sells like crazy even without those limited edition bundles. This game sells normally on the eShop. You'll see it up there in the top 10, top 20 all the time. You'll see it in the top sales in the Japanese Famitsu when it comes to individual package sales. You'll see it in the top 10 UK sales. You'll see it everywhere outside of the bundles. So this game is going to continue selling like crazy. I think people are going to be buying it up all the time. And I think even when Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, we'll have a new Mario Kart game, but I think this game will still somewhat subtly get sales here and there, just like Mario Kart Wii got sales even after when it comes to like Mario Kart 7 or Mario Kart 8. The Mario Kart game on the Wii still got sales back then. So I do feel that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe will still continue selling overall. And like I said, it's crazy what it's done. There's been no other game that I can think of modern era, not a standard pack-in like Wii Sports, that have ever sold this well. So very good. Shout outs to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I guess. But I'm ready for a new game at this point. Now, another thing is Super Mario Party Jamboree. The sales are pretty insane considering the game came out, I think it was like late October, right? It was something like that. I know it was the very end of the year. So it came out that time. It has 6 million plus sales, actually 6.17 million. That is a new entry for the last quarter, and yeah, that's really good. Obviously selling 6 million units plus in that time frame. People pretty much bought that as the holiday game for the Nintendo Switch. There wasn't a lot of huge titles to pick out from. In 2023, there was Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and all sorts of crazy stuff that happened. But this past year in 2024, not quite as much. But Super Mario Party Jamboree was still a huge hit overall. So that's pretty cool. Next up is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I did like this because this game is over 3.91 million in sales. If you tally up maybe even what it's done for January, we're looking at right around 4 million at this point, which is obviously very good when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom in this type of game. And I think, once again, very much like Tears of the Kingdom, I think this game is going to continue selling down the line, especially if we get a patch to fix that resolution and frame rate. I think there are some people that are holding out on buying the game, and if it gets something or if it just works better on the Nintendo Switch 2, expect The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom to also get a boost, and a sustained boost, over the course of a number of years. I know Link's Awakening did really well over the course of the Nintendo Switch's life. I think that Echoes of Wisdom has a chance to do just as good, if not better, than what we saw with the 7 million units plus or so, or it might even been more than that. But yeah, about 7 million units plus when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Now, another thing here, guys, is Mario and Luigi Brothership. This had some nice legs to it. A little bit of a slow start overall, but actually ended up selling 1.84 million units plus. That game came out in November, so really about a month and some odd weeks of sales. Not really too much time to track, and yeah, nearly at 2 million. I think, once again, just like a lot of these other games, it's a turn-based RPG, but some of the loading times are kind of long and stuff like that. I think this game could also have a sustained sales when the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, because it was actually doing pretty good overall in the latter week. I thought this game might fall off in Japan sooner, but it's actually still in the top sales charts, and I do expect Mario and Luigi Brothership to continue getting more residual sales as people have word of mouth with this game. The reviews weren't necessarily incredible or anything like that, so we didn't see a huge boost at the beginning, but people are starting to play and say, no, it's actually pretty good if you kind of get through some of the parts. Yeah, there's some slow parts and there's some pacing issues and overall and some things that aren't so great. If you just get through it and continue playing, it's actually really good with the combat and the story elements. So yeah, very good overall here, guys. And of course, Luigi's Mansion 2, you have Nintendo Switch Sports. Those ones are still doing pretty good, especially Nintendo Switch Sports, 15.74 million. That's actually incredible. I did not think that that would sell anywhere near that, but it is. Now, let's talk about the final topic here, guys, how Nintendo handles the final Direct and the Switch 1 send-off. So if you haven't seen my video talking about the final Direct and the games that could be there, all confirmed and rumored games, make sure you check out that video. It's already doing pretty well. I'll have a link for you guys in the description. Watch that video. Kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about here. So the final send-off for the Nintendo Switch 1 will determine if this system can pass the PlayStation 2. If Nintendo is able to, one, get out the rest of this software that I talked about in that video. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, you get out that Fire Emblem 4 remake, you get out the Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3, you get out Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends ZA, you get these games that are coming out that could absolutely boost the sales up, even with the Nintendo Switch 2 right on the horizon. I think that's going to help out. But there's another key factor here when it comes to the Switch 1 send-off, and that's going to be the prices. Nintendo still has prices that pretty much haven't had a real price cut this whole generation, which is also unheard of for a system that's ever sold this much or anything like that. Most systems that get up to 100 million need price cuts. Pretty much every system has needed a price cut. Nintendo Switch is the only system that I can recall that has sold over 100 million units that didn't need a single price cut in order to get there. So I do feel that with a price cut, that will definitely open things up. So if they do $50 off the top, off of every single model, once the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, or sometime within the Nintendo Switch 2 life, I think that's what's going to propel them over to beat out the PlayStation 2. Remember, the PlayStation 2 needed way more years in order to get to where the Switch is right now at this point, and it needed insane bundles and deals overall. Really big price drops. I mean, you can get them for $99, $150. There was all sorts of deals. They would pack them in with multiple different games. So if Nintendo does $50 off the top and just starts packing in some games overall, I think that's what's actually going to do it for them. So $150 for the Nintendo Switch Lite, $250 for the Nintendo Switch V2, $300 for the Nintendo Switch OLED, and then probably, I would say, I'm just estimating, $399 for the Nintendo Switch 2. So right there, you have a $100 price gap between the highest end Nintendo Switch OLED model and the new system. And then you have a pretty big gap between the other ones. So if it's going to be like for kids, or maybe for someone that's looking for a second Switch, or they're getting late into the game and then later they'll get the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future, I do think that's when the price cuts and all of that kind of play a part. People also like to pick up the special editions or a system that they don't have. Whatever the case is, keep them boxed, collectors. So there's all sorts of factors here. So if Nintendo does that with price drops, and this final direct has some hitters that people can pick up and help still sell the system before the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out, and the price drops kind of go hand in hand with new bundles and other things, that's how they're going to actually get to where they beat out the PlayStation 2. Because once again, they are in striking range, 160 million to 150.86 million, which is probably 151 million units plus right now at this point. So that means around 9 to 8 million away. That's it. So no price drops or anything like that so far. So that's all they are away from that. So to me, I think it's close. It can do it, but Nintendo has to get those things done. I think even having something like, let's say, a $99 Nintendo Switch Lite bundled with a game like New Super Mario Bros., that could be a killer thing that ends up doing incredibly well if they have like a New Super Mario Bros., Mario Red themed, whatever, right? Mario Bros. Movie 2, stuff like that. When that comes out and they're selling that for $99, that would just fly off the shelves from collectors, and of course just more like smaller children or kids or parents that want to get their kids their first system or something like that. And maybe the Nintendo Switch 2 is a ways off for them, or a few years off. So that would be huge. So we'll see if Nintendo employs any of those strategies going forward. But the Wii, the Nintendo DS, all of Nintendo systems that have ever sold 100 million, the Game Boy, every single one of them needed price drops, different types of bundles, and all sorts of stuff. And the Nintendo Switch has not gotten any of that. Outside of bundles, they've gotten that, but no real price drops. So we'll see what happens with that. But what are your thoughts overall when it comes to everything that we talked about? The big news with the Nintendo Switch striking distance, once again, within the PlayStation 2, in addition to all of the big game sales and some of the analysis on that. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG videos, Switch 2, and more content right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.